Well, good morning, Christ Church. We are so happy that you're joining us this morning. Come on, stand if you can in your living room, and let's worship God together. Here we go. Promise maker, promise keeper, you finish what you began. Our provision through the desert, you see it through to the end. You see it through to the end. Come on, we say, the Lord our God is ever faithful, never changing through the ages. From this darkness you will lead us, and forever we will say, you're the Lord our God. Come on. In the silence, in the waiting, yes, we can know you are good. Come on, we declare this verse together. Say, know your plans are for your glory. Yes, we can know you are good. We believe in Lord. Yes, we can know you are good. The Lord our God is ever faithful, never changing through the ages. From this darkness you will lead us, and forever we will say, you're the Lord our God. Come on, declare this verse together. Let's sing. We won't move without you. We won't move without you. 'Cause you're the light of all and all that we need. Yes, you are. We won't move without you. We won't move without you. 'Cause you're the light of all and all that we need. We see it again. We won't move without you. We won't move without you. You're the light of all and all that we need. We trust in you, Lord. We won't move without you. We won't move without you. 'Cause you're the light of all and all that we need. Yeah. The Lord our God is ever faithful, never changing through the ages. From this darkness you will lead us. We believe, and forever we will say, you're the Lord our God. And forever we will say, you're the Lord our God. And forever we will say, you're the Lord our God. We believe in Lord, the Lord our God.
Hey, welcome to Christ Church. My name is Allison, and I'm one of the pastors on staff, and we're so glad that you have decided to join us online today. A couple things before we get started. One, we want you to know that we are so glad that you are a part of our community. No matter where you live, no matter where you're watching from today, we feel connected to you. You are a part of Christ Church, and we're so glad to have you. And this week we had an incredible story of somebody who interacted with our church online, who watched online, engaged online, actually used the words, "I attended online from another state," and then God just did a work in her life. And so we would love for you to check out her story real quick and celebrate this with us.
My name is Michelle Langer. I am natively from New Jersey. Chose Christ Church of Camden because I've always felt very connected to God, and I was raised in a different religion. I was raised in Catholicism, and I didn't necessarily agree with their ideas and their beliefs, but I always knew God was present in my life. And Following losing a very close friend, Rachel Hodge, she's a dispatcher in Camden, I felt the need to really reaffirm my relationship with God. And so today is my birthday, and what better way to celebrate my birthday than becoming one with Christ again. I tried my hardest to get down here to try to at least be closer for her services, and it did not work out. I had to actually live stream it from my car at my job in New Jersey, and I cried. I cried every second of the funeral, and I tried as hard as I could to be happy and celebrate her life, but it was still very mournful and hard to be 7 states away. Immediately following, I felt the need to watch the live stream of her church on Sunday. I was like, it makes me feel a little bit better. I feel a little bit closer to Camden now. So I watched it. Allison was bringing up and saying, just go ahead, and if you want to feel the need to reach out or get involved or do something. I was like, I really would like to be baptized again, because baptism as a child was not my choice. It was given to me as a right from my mother, I believe. And I was like, no, this is really my choice this time. This is my choice to be baptized, to be one with Christ, and I'm going to do it on my own terms. So it means more to me. So in making that choice, I did hesitantly reach out and said, I know you don't know me, but I'm coming from New Jersey and I would like to be baptized. And I was met with just an outpouring of love, of live streaming a funeral to live streaming church. I've never felt more included in my life. I just want God's blessing to come into my life, because I've always been so easy to block my own blessing, and so scared and so hesitant and so afraid of what if, what could be. Even coming today, I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm scared. And I was like, there's nothing to be afraid of. Like 3 people that I love very dearly on different levels for different reasons. I was like, this is why I'm here. So just take a deep breath, relax, it'll be fine. So that's why I just want to be with God in every walk of life and every day, because I don't know when my next day is my last. I have lost so many people that I've cared about, and I don't want to be bitter about it anymore. I want to live and rejoice in their memory and their presence.
Have you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior?
Yes.
Are you willing to follow Him all of the days of your life?
Yes.
I now baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Man, we're so excited about hearing more stories like that, and we know that some of you might be starting to just kind of get a little itchy to get back to church, and maybe even getting frustrated, and listen, we want to get back too. We love engaging with you in person, but we also know that online church is here to stay. Whether you are somebody who in Camden County may not feel comfortable coming back to church when we're able to open our doors back up and meet in person, or maybe you're somebody who lives far away. Maybe you live in another state or another country and you're not from here, but you're engaging with us online. We want to keep that going, and so we know that online church is here to stay, and we're going to try and get better and better and better at it. And this is not the first story like Michelle's that we're going to hear. We know that there are people watching from other countries. There's people watching from other states, and it's incredible to us and to our team that what we're doing here in Camden County can transfer through cameras and equipment and sound equipment, and it can make a difference in somebody's life who doesn't even live here. And so we are so excited about that. We hope that you are too, because it's just it's going to become part of the culture of our church now, and we love it. And so we're embracing it. We hope you are too. We want to say a special thank you to those of you who are giving online, who are connecting with us and supporting the mission and the vision of our church through your generosity. It's the reason why we're able to do some of the things that we're able to do right now, and the reason that we're able to connect with people the way that we're connecting. So much of that is because of you, and so we just want to say thank you for that. And if you're interested in giving and partnering with our church through generosity, you can follow the instructions right there on the screen. We would love to connect with you in that way. If you have any questions, please let us know. But we just want to say thanks for being a part of our church that way. And right now we just would love to continue worshiping. We'd love to continue just kind of turning our hearts towards God and singing these songs and these prayers out to Him, and knowing that He is in our living rooms right now, He's in our kitchens right now, He is right in the middle of this, even though we're meeting online. And so join us today, and let us just keep singing together, and just know how much we love you and we enjoy connecting with you.
I spoke a word, you were singing over me. 'Cause you have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. We say, oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God always chases me down. By still I found leaves and 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah, yeah. When I was your fault, still your love fought for me. Come on, tell them. 'Cause you have been so, so good. Oh Lord, you've been so good to me. Yeah. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so kind, Lord. You have been so, so kind to me. Come on. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God always chases me down. Why still I found leaves in 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. Oh, no, no. Yeah. Come on, sing this out. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb down, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Come on, sing it again. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb, hey, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Come on, we sing again. No shadow. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. We sing it again. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God always chases me down. By still I'm found leaves in 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah.
wanted to start an argument with someone, all you would have to do is pick a topic, pick a person, some subject, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And you just simply ask the question, who or what is the greatest of all time? I mean, it could be movies, it could be coaches, it could be a team, it could be a particular athlete, it could be Jeopardy. How about that? Who is the greatest Jeopardy player of all time? Now, I don't know if you've been watching this show, The Last Dance, but every Sunday night, Chris and I sit on the couch and we tune in and we watch 2 hours of this documentary that's following Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls back in the 90s. And we have this whole new generation of people who are able to now watch Michael Jordan, who previously maybe didn't know much about him or what he was like as a basketball player. But the interesting thing is that it's raised this whole new debate on, is Michael Jordan the greatest of all time or not? And so I found myself 2 weeks ago up in North Carolina getting ready for our daughter's wedding, and we were spending some time with some friends, and I walk into the house, and basically the first question was, hey, who is the greatest basketball player of all time? Is it Michael Jordan or is it LeBron James? And so we had a conversation, we had a discussion, it got into a debate, and we were talking about the GOAT, right? The greatest of all time, which trying to determine is somewhat subjective, because you have to decide, are we talking about statistics, and which statistics? Are we talking about championships? Are we talking about MVPs? You have to define what your criteria is. Are we talking about all-star appearances? Listen, if we're talking about straight up athlete, like who's the best basketball player, the eye test, LeBron's not even second in the conversation. It would actually be Kobe, but I digress. Let me get back to the point here. So, is Michael Jordan the greatest of all time? And I say, is that even a question that we need to answer? Of course he's the greatest of all time. But being on the opposite sides sometimes of having debates like that can actually be fun. It can be good-natured. It could be silly, really, because they are opinions in the end that they just don't really make much of a difference. It could be sports, it could be a player, it could be a team, it could be which is the best football conference, on it goes. Some things are just easier to resolve than other things. Now, it's always been this way, I think, but right now it seems to be even more so with what we're experiencing in our culture right now, is that we find ourselves dealing with a multitude of issues that are potentially divisive. Think about some of the things that are just kind of in our conversation right now. We have this huge category of COVID-19. And we have some people who are kind of over here on this end of the spectrum and say, okay, I may not come out of my house for many more months, while on the other end of the spectrum, we have people who just simply think the whole thing's a hoax. What about reopening? I mean, some of us think, whether we're talking about our government, our state, if we're talking about, locally, like reopening, that's just a terrible idea. While others of us are on the far end of the spectrum saying it's just way overdue. Or how about this one? Even getting back together as a church, we have people who are on the far ends of the spectrum. In other words, some of us are saying, hey, what's the holdup and what are we really afraid of? While others of us are way down on the other end going, oh, to actually get back together again would actually be irresponsible. Those of us who live here in Camden County, where I am right now, down here somewhere in southeast Georgia, have at some point or in some way found ourselves reading news, listening to reports, more than likely being involved in some kind of a conversation, all centering around the shooting and the death of Ahmaud Arbery. And the views, again, and the opinions and the emotions are on far ends of the spectrum. They're entirely varied and yet highly volatile. I originally thought about this series, the title and the messages, knowing that we were entering into an election year. I thought we probably need to talk about some of these things as it addresses politics, right? The season that we're entering. And here's why, because I'd actually read a while back that 8 out of 10 Americans actually say that the one thing that causes them the most stress in their life is talking about politics. But given the climate of our world right now, where we have all these other things that are just kind of happening, I think it's the perfect time for us to actually talk about these kinds of things because the application is so widespread. In these last few weeks, if you've been joining us, we've been talking about the church, right? The way the church began, the mission that it had, the message that it proclaimed, the community and the unity that it actually sought to have with one another. And I think as a church, we've worked really hard to try to recreate those things in our own context, meaning this, where we have young people who are actually sitting next to older people, and we have affluent worshiping alongside those who are less affluent, and we have Black, white, Asian, and Hispanic people who are part of one local church, and even, yes, Republican and Democrat sitting side by side. And knowing that we're never going to find a resolution to a lot of these kinds of issues, at least in my life and what I'm challenging you to do in your own life, is that I've made the decision to plant my flag and my faith in the person of Jesus. And so I want to ask you at the beginning here, and I want you to be able to ask yourself this particular question. Can I put my faith filter ahead of my political filter? Or you could say my social issues filter. Or could I put my faith filter ahead of my social media filter? And here's where that gets difficult for a lot of us, because we might easily say, yeah, I could do that. But then the way we tend to think about it is we tend to believe that the way that we see things is exactly the way that Jesus would likely see things as well. I mean, haven't you ever noticed that Jesus seems to maybe agree with the majority of the beliefs that you have? Meaning, many of us on the far extreme of an issue could see Jesus more than likely supporting our particular views, while people who are on the complete other end of the spectrum, whatever the issue is, would likely also say, Jesus is probably supporting my views too. See, I know that if you told me, hey, John, could you write a message somehow supporting, Jesus as a Republican, I could probably do that. I could probably find enough material, put it together and go, yeah, Jesus probably supports this. And yet, on the other hand, you said, could you actually write a message and show Jesus could possibly support a Democratic political viewpoint? I could probably get enough material together and say, I could actually do that. And so I just don't think it's helpful for me to go issue by issue and tell you what I think Jesus would do on a particular topic. I want my goal to be not to convince you to actually change your views. I want my goal in this particular message in the next couple of weeks actually be to get us to change how we actually respond to one another while we hold those differing and oftentimes completely opposite views. And the responses that we're going to look at are things that I think we seem to be losing in our culture. Things like dignity and humility and civility and unity. It's actually that word civility that I want to spend a few minutes talking about right now. And I'm going to read from the book of James in chapter 1. And in the past, and maybe you're going to get a Bible out or pull up a device, James chapter 1, that would be great. But in the past, it seemed like we could respond to people and respectfully disagree about certain things. But today what I'm noticing is that there just seems to be a whole lot more anger and even hostility. And instead of maybe criticizing content, we've moved over towards criticizing character. In other words, instead of saying, hey, I disagree with what you're saying, or I disagree with you even, it seems like things have moved over to, hey, you're an idiot because you believe that, or you hold that view, or that's just stupid that you don't actually see things my way. And I want to propose that when we move from attacking the issue to attacking the person, because their views are different, that's not civil. And so James writes these words as the brother of Jesus, that's who's writing this, in chapter 1 on how we should respond to each other. It's very simple, it's very short, may sound familiar to a lot of you. Here's what he writes in verse 19. He says, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. For human anger does not accomplish God's righteousness. Maybe you've noticed this before in a conflict when things start to escalate a little bit. Your ears actually start stop listening and your mind starts shutting down and your heart starts to get a little bit hard. So James says if we're going to produce the kind of righteousness that God desires, and then he lists three things. And the first one is this. He says, be quick to listen. Now, most of us are quick to speak, and we're really actually slow to listen. James says the first thing to actually do, and what you want other people to actually do, is to be quick to listen. The problem for a lot of us, and okay, I'll just speak for myself, is that oftentimes we either already have our mind made up about what we believe or what we're thinking, or we have our mind made up on how we're going to respond. And so we actually can't listen at all. I think that for the most part that we all want what each other wants. I want you to listen to me speak. You want me to listen to you speak. And I don't want you to argue with me because I want you to hear me. And here's why, because if I can't hear you, it just makes me think I haven't been heard. And the opposite is true. You can't hear me until you think I've heard you. Now, with all that said, I hope that you understand that every single one of us has biases based on our upbringing and our experiences. And I'll just speak personally. What I found in the last 2 weeks as I talked to people who have had different experiences than me, specifically in this regard, people who, because of the color of their skin, that I'm learning things about their story. I'm learning why they actually believe the kinds of things that they believe and the experiences they've had with things that I've never had to deal with in my life. I'm trying to listen so that I can learn. And so often I'm really guilty of being quick to speak just so you can hear me. And James says the first thing is to actually be quick to listen. And then he says, be slow to speak. Literally, he's saying there, be late. So he's saying, be late to speak. And maybe you've known some people in your life who have actually been able to hold their words, and just how wise they actually appeared to be just simply by not saying anything. Because the moment I start speaking, I tend to stop listening. Now, this may sound too simplistic, I know, but everyone's behavior tends to make perfect sense to them. You know what I mean? Like the way you react and the way that you respond, that makes perfect sense to you. The views that you have makes perfect sense. The politics you subscribe to makes complete sense to you. What doesn't make sense to us is why. Like why someone else would not see things the way we do. I mean, because who hasn't actually said something like this before? I don't know why they would think that, or I don't know why they would do that. I don't know why they would believe that. I don't know why they would actually say that. Those statements are actually a confession of what we don't know. In other words, there's something that we don't actually understand. So listening, being late to speak, actually opens up the door for us to learn. Now, for all of its benefits right now, especially, and there are some good ones, social media has a lot of problems. And one of them is this, is that when you click on a story on Facebook, it's set up to feed you more stories like that one. And the more stories you click on, then the more narrow the perspective becomes as you get more information. In other words, it's actually designed to reinforce what you already believe and how you feel. And so as difficult as it is, I want to challenge us, right, all of us, that before we become critics of others, to actually become students of others. So James says, quick to listen, slow to speak, and then he says this, slow to anger. And I think it's probably a good place to maybe press pause and say that anger itself is not a sin. That's not really what he's talking about. Jesus was clearly angry a few times. The Apostle Paul actually wrote, in your anger, so he's saying there's going to be some, in your anger, do not sin. It's what we do with our anger that actually causes the problems. Some of us are people who blow up, right? We get angry about something and then we let it go and we feel better even though nobody else does. Others of us, we tend to bottle it up, right? We sulk around a little bit and we stuff it. What James is doing is presenting a different way. He's presenting a way that says that slow to become angry is a decision that you make that leads to a really great result. That when I'm quick to listen, when I'm actually slow to speak, I'm less likely to become angry. And in verse 20, he actually gives us the reason this is so important, where he says, "For human anger does not accomplish God's righteousness." So when your anger only produces what you desire, it goes against God's desires. And he finishes these thoughts in verse 21, where he says this, "Therefore, ridding yourselves of moral filth," and we'll come back and catch some of these words, "and the evil that is so prevalent, humbly receive the implanted word, which is able to save your souls." James says, get rid of moral filth. It means dishonor. That we become so angry by what we consider to be important moral issues that we cross a line by how we actually talk and react. James says we got to get rid of that. And he said evil, or maybe it's written in your version of the Bible as malice. It's that desire to get even. It's where we want revenge and we seek some payback. Then James says, but responds this way. He says, humbly. It doesn't mean that you lay down your beliefs and your convictions. Rather, it means that you hold them maybe a little more loosely with some humility. Like you hold your beliefs and convictions more like a butterfly than you do a baseball bat. Humility, and we'll get to that later, is more about we than it is about me. And then he lands here, he says, there's been an implanted word in your life. That's the Greek word logos. We read that in the book of John, chapter 1. It refers to Jesus. In other words, his words and his life have been placed inside of you as a follower of his. Which means, and has some great implications, it means that your greatest loyalty is not to an agenda. That your greatest loyalty is not to a group. It's not even to a political party. Your greatest loyalty is not to an idea. But your greatest loyalty as a follower of Jesus is actually to Jesus. Listen, the issues of our time, they're going to come and they're going to go. There's going to be another event. There's going to be another tragedy. There's going to be another news cycle. There may be another health crisis. There's going to be another election. And someone's going to lose and someone's actually going to win in the whole deal. Here's what I hope that we're going to see, and I think it's what James is driving towards, is that we, like the collective we, wins and loses, right? The church wins and loses based on how we actually treat each other. And so I'm simply calling us to civility, that when we actually agree to do it respectfully, because more often than not, when you actually win an argument with a lot of back and forth, you don't actually win anything at all. You can actually sometimes lose your influence and even your relationships. So when it comes to being right, God desires that we be right with each other. And what I want to do to kind of end the whole thing is to actually give us 4 quick questions that I think could just work wonders in your life and your relationships if you keep them on the radar for future conversations. And here they are. Here's the first one. Is what I'm going to say, text, or post true? Is it true? Quite often, most of us, nearly all of us, we speak in what's called hyperbole. I mean, our son Jordan used to come to the dinner table every night, and he would sit down and he would just go, guys, the funniest thing ever happened today. And after a while, you would have to say, Jordan, it can't be the funniest thing every single day. He's speaking in hyperbole. Things like this, right? The Kansas City Chiefs are the greatest team of all time. That's hyperbole. Or you say every Democrat, and you could fill in the blank with something. Or if you said Republicans don't care about, and you fill in the blank about something. It's not mostly true. It's not what I want to be true. The question is what I'm about to say, text, or post really true? And here's the second question. Is it helpful? Something might actually be true, but it's not actually helpful. You have to ask the question, like, what is my purpose behind this? Is it to win an argument? Is it actually to prove that you're wrong? The Apostle Paul, again, he wrote these words, speak what is only helpful for building others up. So that's the second question, is it helpful? Here's the third question, is it personal? In other words, can I say this or discuss this without attacking a person's character? And so I want to urge us right now, especially right now, as more and more people are forced to spend time online. and more people are getting screen fatigue, and we're tired of being isolated, I really want to urge us right now to not have a discussion or a debate on social media, if it's possible, that turns personal. Because we miss so much. I mean, we just miss so much by not being able to sit down in front of each other, because words matter, and tone matters, and expressions matter, and the heart behind all those things, it just matters. And so, is it personal? And here's a fourth question: is what I'm going to say, text, or post loving? Is it loving? If our default, right, if the default is loving, we will at the same time avoid the untrue and the unhelpful and the personal. Do what James says, right? You hit pause, be slow in responding, and before I hit post or I hit send, I just ask, is this loving? Does this actually represent Jesus? See, it was Jesus, after all, who said, everyone will know you're my disciples by the way that you love one another. And so is what I'm going to say, text, or post loving? Now, a favorite author of mine, an American pastor by the name of Frederick Buechner, writes these words where he says, although kindness is not the same as holiness, kindness is one of the doors that holiness enters the world through. So, can we listen? Can we learn? And can we love? This is what he says again, right, James? Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger.
Speak to me when the silence steals my voice. You understand me. You understand me. Hey. Come to me in the valley of unknowns. You understand me. You understand me. You understand me, God. You understand me. Come on, we say. So I throw all my cares before you. My doubts and fears don't scare you. 'Cause you're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. So I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. 'Cause you're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought you were. So much greater, Lord. Come on, let's sing the second verse. I believe. And I believe, but help my unbelief. You understand me, yes you do. You understand me. Come on, tell him, help me. Hey. So help me reach the faith that's underneath. You understand me, yes. You understand me. 'Cause you understand me, God. And you understand me. Come on. So I throw all my cares before you. My doubts and fears don't scare you. 'Cause you're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. So I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. 'Cause you're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought you were. So much greater, Lord, so much bigger than anything I can face, God. Come on, let's sing this out. I will rest in the Father's hands. Leave the rest in the Father's hands. No matter what is going on, I will rest in the Father's hands. Leave the rest hands. Come on, church, sing it out, say, I will rest, hey, in the Father's hands. I will leave it all, leave the rest in the Father's hands. We say, I will rest in the Father's hands. Oh Lord, leave the rest in the Father's hands. So I threw all my cares before you. My doubts and fears don't scare you, 'cause you're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. So I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. You're so much bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought you were. Oh, we love you, Lord.
Hey, thanks for joining us online today. We're so glad that you're here. If you're interested in connecting and partnering with us through giving, we would love to do that. Follow those instructions right there on the screen. And then today, if you're here and you are interested in taking kind of a next step, whether it's towards connection or just finding out more about our church, or getting to know some of our staff, some of our pastors, we would love to do that with you. And so right now, look down in the comments if you're watching live, and there's a link that's going to lead you to a Zoom call. On the other end of that Zoom call, some of our staff, some of our pastors are waiting to connect with you. So I want to encourage you, if you are not yet connected here, if you're just kind of watching and just taking it in, connect with us. We want to know you. We want to know your story. We want to hear your story. And just like we heard life change through Michelle earlier in our service, we believe that same thing is true for you. And so connect with us. Let us have that opportunity. Click that link. Jump into that Zoom call. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have, or really just give you some more information about the church. Again, whether you're here locally in Camden or whether you're somewhere else, we would love to connect with you. And so click that link. We love you so much. We love connecting with you online. Again, we cannot wait to open our doors back up to get to connect face to face again. But in the meantime, we're going to continue to practice social distancing and do what's best for our neighbors, for our friends, for our families, and just kind of honor God through that. And so connect with us online. We'd love to have you, and we'll see you next Sunday.